The African savanna at dawn was a strange blend of beauty and menace. The first rays of sunlight painted the endless grasslands in warm gold, but every shadow held a whisper of danger for seasoned tracker Elias and Becky. It was another routine. Morning, slinging his worn leather satchel across his shoulder, he set out to check the water holes for signs of poachers. His weathered face carried the calm of a man who had spent decades in the wild, but even he could never anticipate what lay ahead that day. Far from the safety of the Pride, a heavily pregnant lioness named Nia moved slowly through the tall grass. Her belly was round and heavy. Each step measured, she was searching for a shaded spot near a small stream, a place she could rest and drink. Her golden eyes scanned the horizon, unaware of the silent danger coiled nearby beneath. The rustling grass, a reticulated python thick as a man's thigh and over 20 feet long, lay perfectly still. For hours it had been waiting for the right moment to strike. To the python, Nia wasn't a queen of the savannah, she was Prania. Lowered her head to drink her reflection rippling in the shallow water. That's when the grass behind her shifted, a subtle movement but lethal. In meaning, in a blur of motion, the python struck its body, exploding from the undergrowth like a whip. The first coil looped over Nia's shoulders, another snared her hindquarters. The lioness roared a deep guttural cry that carried across the plain. She thrashed, claws ripping at the snake's thick-scaled hide, but the python's grip only tightened. The massive serpent was built for this, crushing the breath from its victim before the final swallow. Nia's paws churned the dust. Her tail lashed wildly. Her eyes, usually fierce, were now wide with fear. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for the unborn cubs inside her. From a ridge a few hundred meters away, Elias froze mid-step. He had heard lions roar before, but this one had urgency, desperation. Raising his binoculars, his heart skipped a beat. He could see the python's enormous coils wrapped around the lioness, muscles rippling as it constricted. Lee's new nature was cruel, and predators fell to predators every day, but this felt different. She was pregnant, and she was alone. Instinct and years of bushcraft told him that getting too close to an angry lioness was suicide. Yet watching her die slowly was something his conscience wouldn't allow. He checked the distance, too far to reach her on foot in seconds, but maybe just close enough to intervene if he was careful. Nia's roar wasn't just a cry of pain. It was a call in the far distance to lionesses lifted their heads from the shade of an acacia tree. These were her sisters and the pride-seasoned hunters themselves. They exchanged a brief silent look, then began running. The pounding of their paws stirred up a cloud of dust, a sign that help might be on the way. But the python was relentless. Its coils tightened, and Nia's movements began to slow. Her breath came in short, ragged gasps. The edges of her vision blurred. She dug her claws into the ground, trying to twist free. But the serpent's weight felt like a wall of muscle pressing in from all sides. Elias crouched low, moving quickly yet silently through the grass. His right hand gripped the handle of his panga, a broad machete often used for clearing brush. His left hand was clenched into a fist, his knuckles white. Every instinct screamed at him that this was madness, but there was no time to think. He was close enough. He could hear the sound of the python's scales rasping against Nia's fur, a sickening whisper of death. He could also hear the lioness's labored breathing, each breath a struggle against the crushing forceless. New pythons could strike backward even while constricting. One wrong move, and he could be the next victim, but hesitation now would mean certain death for Nia. Nia's head sank lower toward the ground. Her strength was slipping away. The python's grip had forced the air from her lungs, and her body was beginning to go limp. The world around her seemed to fade. The golden grass, the chirp of birds, the distant shapes of her pride, all dissolving into a haze. Then, from somewhere deep inside, a spark of defiance flared. She dug her hindclaws into the earth and wrenched her head upward, letting out one last roar. Sound that ripped through the still morning air like a battle cry. It was enough. The two approaching lionesses had closed the distance. Their silhouettes burst from the grass behind Elias. Moving like tawny lightning toward the python, Elias froze. For a heartbeat caught between relief and fear, the rescue was coming. But whether it would be a coordinated salvation or a bloody chaos was yet to be seen. Ground trembled under the pounding paws of the two lionesses racing toward their Trapped sister dust swirled in the early sunlight, the air heavy with tension. Elias could feel his pulse hammering in his ears. The python's muscles bulged as it tightened its hold, sensing that its prey was on the verge of collapse. Nia's roar had faded into desperate wheezing. Her amber eyes darted between her sister's charging forms and the human crouched in the grass. It was as if she knew this was her final chance. The first lioness, Suri, a muscular huntress with a scar across. Her muzzle slammed into the python's midsection with the force of a battering ram. Her claws ripped at the serpent's scales, leaving deep gouges. The second younger lioness, Amara, leapt at the python's head, snapping her jaws around its neck. The python reacted with terrifying speed. Even while constricting Nia, it coiled its tail around Suri's hind leg, pulling her off balance. Amara was forced to release her bite when the snake's head snapped upward, its mouth opening in a silent hiss revealing rows of backward curved teeth. Elias saw his opening. While the python's attention was split between the two attacking lionesses, he darted forward. The panga flashed in the sunlight as he brought it down hard on the thickest coil, pinning Nia's ribs. The blade sliced through scales, releasing a sickening hiss of air and a sudden spray of dark blood. The python's body writhed violently, its massive coils whipping through the air like giant ropes. One swing caught Elias across the chest, knocking him backward into the dust. His vision blurred, but he gritted his teeth and forced himself up. He had only weakened the grip, not broken it. Nia gasped as a sliver of air reached her lungs. She kicked out. With her hind legs trying to wriggle free, Suri pounced again, this time digging her teeth into the wounded section of the python's body. Amara rejoined the attack, clawing furiously at its head. The python's strength was incredible. Even injured, it managed to fling Amara aside with a thrash of its neck, but its coils were loosening slowly, painfully. Elias staggered forward once more, heart pounding. He knew this was his last chance. If the python recovered its grip, the lioness would be finished. Planting his feet, he swung the panga with every ounce of strength left in him. The blade bit deep into the serpent's flesh, cutting through the muscle that held Nia trapped. With a guttural growl, Suri yanked at the loosened coils, her powerful jaws pulling the python away from Nia's midsection. Amara dove in, claws tearing at its underside. The snake, now bleeding heavily and overwhelmed, uncoiled in a sudden desperate retreat. Its massive body slid into the tall grass, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared, leaving only a wide, trampled circle of dust and blood in its wake. Nia collapsed onto her side, chest heaving, her fur matted with dirt and the faint sheen of blood where the python's coils had bitten into her flesh. Elias stood a few feet away, bent over, catching his breath. His chest ached where the serpent's tail had struck him, but he barely noticed. Suri and Amara stayed close to their sister, nudging her with their muzzles, sniffing her sides as if checking for the heartbeat of the cubs inside her. A low rumble of relief passed between them, a sound Elias had never heard before, somewhere between a purr and a growl. For a moment, human and lion simply looked at one another. Nia's golden eyes met Ilias's, and there was no aggression in them, only exhaustion. And something else, recognition. Perhaps Ilias knew better than to linger. Even a grateful lioness was still a wild predator. But as he stepped backward, Suri took a single pace toward him. She didn't bare her teeth. Instead, she gave a slow blink, a gesture almost cat-like in its gentleness, before turning back to Nia. Elias raised a hand slightly, not in a wave, but as if acknowledging the moment. Then he began the slow walk back toward his truck, every step heavy with adrenaline's fading rush behind him. The pride's roars echoed faintly, not of fear or warning, but of reunion. Hours later, under the shade of a wide acacia, Nia lay surrounded by her pride. Suri and Amara kept watch while two younger lionesses groomed the dirt and blood from her fur. The python's attack had left deep bruises along her ribs, but her breathing was steadier. Now the savanna around them hummed with life, the distant trumpeting of elephants, the chatter of birds, the whisper of wind through dry grass. The python was gone, but the memory of its crushing coils lingered in the tension of the air. Elias watched from a distance, leaning against his truck. He could have driven away hours ago, but something kept him rooted. There was a strange sense of closure in seeing Nia safe, her head resting on her paws, her eyes half closed in rest rather than pain. The sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in deep reds and golds. Something remarkable happened. Nia rose slowly to her feet. Her sisters formed a loose circle around her as she lifted her head toward the dying light and let out a single, powerful "Rue." It wasn't the cry of fear Elias had heard that morning. It was something far older, a declaration that she had survived, that the life growing inside her had survived the sound rolled across the plains, reaching even the distant herds grazing under the setting sun. Elias felt a shiver run through him. It was as if the land itself had answered her. Damn. The wind carrying her voice far beyond the limits of sight in the days to come. He would tell no one the full story. People might not believe that a man and a pride of lions had stood against a giant python together, but he would remember every detail: the flash of sunlight on scales, the weight of the ponga in his hands, the look in Nia's eyes, and somewhere out there, in the heart of the savannah, a lioness heavy with cubs would one day bring them into the world, cubs who owed their lives to the strange, fleeting alliance between predator and man.